Peace and light, family. So something I really want to discuss today is the value of setting boundaries. Now, setting boundaries is something that we all need to work on. I myself have had a journey with learning how to set boundaries. I think it's something that we hear about, something that people talk about, post about, but exactly how do you do it, right? How do you set boundaries and how do you stick to those boundaries? So first, let's start off with the value of setting boundaries. It is important that we set boundaries because self-preservation is key. The idea of self-preservation is the act of making sure that you are holistically well first. If we are not well, how can we help others? How can we be of service to others, right? If we are not well, how can we be whole and be present in any situation and in any moment that will lead us to true happiness and gratitude, right? How can we be well if we do not value our wellness? And setting boundaries is simply just valuing your wellness. What are boundaries? Boundaries are simply those lines, right? We draw our line in the sand of things that we will not and cannot tolerate, right? When you have a boundary, it's just simply saying like, look, this for me is something that intrudes on my wellness and I have to put a stop right there. This is something that is not okay with me and I have to put a stop right there. This is something that will hurt me or harm me and I have to put a stop right there. This is something that may intrude upon my peace, so I have to put a stop to it right there. That is your boundary. That is a boundary. When you draw a line in the sand and you decide that there are certain things that you just will not tolerate because it intrudes and demeans your wellness. That is a boundary. Now, here is the meat and the heart of the situation. How do we set boundaries, right? How do we set boundaries? You set boundaries by, number one, knowing thyself. What do you bring to the table? That is the question you have to ask yourself. What do I bring to the table? Physically, mentally, spiritually. What do I bring to the table? Both good and bad. That is how we know our value. That is how we can check our value of any relationship, our value to any situation, from work to love life to friendships. What do you bring to the table in your friendship? What do you teach? How do you help? How are you of service? How are you present? How are you supportive? How are you showing up? What have you done? What do you do? What do you bring to the table? Know your strengths and your weaknesses. So first you have to define, what do you bring to the table in any relationship, in your love relationship? How are you present? How are you supportive? How are you healing? What are you teaching, right? These are questions you can ask yourself so that you are aware of what you bring to the table in that relationship. So number one, know what you bring to the table. Number two, in order to continue to bring what you bring to the table and more, how do you need to feel, think, and what do you need to know for sure? What is your spiritual wellness in that relationship? What is your mental wellness in that relationship? What is your physical wellness in that relationship? What are the things from that relationship that you need in order to be well? Right? And not that your wellness is contingent upon somebody doing something for you, but your wellness is contingent upon somebody not doing something to you. That's a key difference. It's not what you expect for them to do, but this is the energy that I expect you to carry. Therefore, this energy does not exist. Right? That is how we start to clarify what some of our boundaries are. What are you expecting from that relationship? And then step three is you set your boundaries. You draw your lines. This is what I bring to the table. This is what I'm receiving from this table. This is what you bring to me. This is the value that you have in my life. And because this relationship needs to be reciprocity, all relationships require reciprocity. If there is no reciprocity, there is no relationship. Reciprocity means that you are giving something and you are receiving something. Bringing to the table, what am I bringing you? What am I giving you? And then what am I receiving from this relationship? That's 1 and 2. Number 3, what can I not tolerate? In order for this relationship to remain balanced in reciprocity, what are things that we both cannot do to each other? And those are your boundaries. Those are your lines. Those are your cannots and will nots, okay? So decide what your boundaries are, how to set boundaries, know what you bring to the table, know what you're receiving from that relationship, and then you must decide what your boundaries are. Decide what they are. Boundaries could be anything from a respective space. Boundaries could be something like, I need communication. Boundaries can be something like, I need you to understand that I need you to be present, physically present for me. I need you to be emotionally supportive. If you cannot do that, then this relationship is no longer balanced. My boundaries have been crossed, right? That is how we set our boundaries. Know what you bring. Know what they bring. Decide what the balance, the reciprocity is, and then what are things that you will not tolerate that can hinder or negatively impact that balance, right? So what are your boundaries? What are the things that are your cannots and your will nots and your won'ts and your ain't gonna do's, okay? Now for me personally, I'll give an example. My boundaries, and let me be specific. So I had a recent friendship, not so recent actually, but a friendship that I had to end because my boundaries were being crossed. My boundaries were being crossed. I know what I was bringing to the table in the friendship. I was able to discuss and describe and identify what I was bringing to the table in the friendship. And then I asked the friend one question. What are you bringing to the table? When is the last time you've shown up? When is the last time you've been supportive? When is the last time you've been there? Other than physical, because you're here physically, but when is the last time you've been here? What have you done? And that's how I was able to bring to my friend's attention that there's an imbalance in this relationship. And then I had to say there's an imbalance because boundaries have been crossed. I feel disrespected because a boundary that I set is I like for my space to be respected. I like for my altar to be respected. I like for my art to be respected. And those things were being constantly disrespected, right? So that was a boundary that was being crossed. If I'm going through a rough time in my life, I had went through a passing of a family member and that friend didn't show up. I had went to jail before. That friend didn't show up. Times that I needed you to be there, that friend didn't show up. I graduated from grad school. That friend didn't show up. So it was multiple times where you could have been present, big moments where support needed to be there, and you did not show up. You didn't go out of your way to show up. You didn't even try to show up. And that was the difference. Those are boundaries that I had set. You're not being emotionally supportive. If you can't do that, that's a boundary that you're crossing. You're not respecting my space. You're not respecting my altar. That's a boundary that you're crossing. That's causing an imbalance in this relationship. When you need something, when you need some advice, when you need to know some spiritual healing stuff, you need some practices, you need this, you need that, you call me, you come to my door, you want to know, you got questions, and I'm here and I'm present and I'm answering and I'm there and I'm supportive. When you're going through a hard time, a rough time, I'm not just there to be supportive, but I'm also there to offer solutions, right? So I was able to list what I'm bringing to the table, discuss what I'm bringing to the table, but when I asked, what are you bringing to my table? What are you bringing? The answer was not there. There was an imbalance. If there's an imbalance in a relationship, 9 times out of 10, there's no reciprocity. So there is no relationship at all. Know what you bring to the table. Know what you expect to be brought to the table, because the goal is balance. You give and you receive. That is reciprocity. That is a relationship. If we are in relationship, there needs to be a balance, right? And that balance, granted, it changes moment to moment. Moment to moment. It looks different all the time. What it may look like sometimes is I may need to be the one that has to support, and you are the one that needs to be supported. But what the balance is when I need support, you are present, you are here, you are supporting, right? So that's how we have our balance. And then you decide, what are those boundaries for you? for you. And those boundaries may look different in every relationship, from your lover relationships, your husband, your spouse, your woman, your wife, your man, your girl, whatever. Your boundaries in that relationship may look different than the boundaries you have with your children, or the boundaries you have with coworkers, or the boundaries you have with friends, parents, siblings. All boundaries in different relationships may look different because they're different types of relationships. You may bring something different to every relationship. You may be expecting and receiving something different from every relationship. Therefore, your boundaries for every relationship will look different. However, you as a person need to have boundaries. You are valuable enough for it. What you bring to the table is worthy of boundaries. Why? Because you need to self-preserve. If you are not receiving anything from the relationships you are in, that means that you are doing nothing but giving, and eventually you will burn out. Eventually you will be drained. Eventually you will be exhausted, and you will have nothing left for you. Set your boundaries. Know your worth. And if you don't value yourself, no one else will. If you don't value what you bring to the table, no one else will. Set your boundaries. You deserve it, family. You deserve it. Peace and light, y'all. If you have any questions, please DM me on Instagram at The Queen Poe, or leave them in the comments below. I appreciate everyone for watching and subscribing. I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers. I'm so excited about that. Thank you so much. I appreciate your energy and your time. Much love and light.